Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Email podcast@providence.edu with questions or comments. Go Friars!
Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chittum, and I'm here with producer and PC videographer Chris Judge, class of 05. As a major gift officer here at Providence College, I've had the opportunity to meet with hundreds of fascinating people in the Friar family, and we're excited to share some of their stories with you. And today we are joined by Dean Sylvia Maxfield, Dean of the Providence College School of Business. Prior to coming to PC, Dean Maxfield worked at Simmons College as well, and prior to her time at Simmons, she was at Yale in the private sector. She was the vice president and senior sovereign credit analyst at Lehman Brothers, where she focused on Central America. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
Well, we're certainly glad that you can make it, and we were going to have this podcast a week ago. We had some technical difficulties, but it worked out all for the best. This morning on the Providence Journal business section, actually you brought it over to the podcast. We have the cover story of the newspaper is the new PCSB building that's going to be finished soon.
Yeah, the headline is New Business School on Track, and it's an amazing photograph of the atrium. Looks almost space age, and it really is a remarkable space. There are 18 massive skylights. It's a gorgeous atrium. Right,
and you can see it in the picture. And in addition to that, the skylights there and the cranes and everything. And I think it really is a remarkable time, not only for Providence College in general, but for your department specifically. Your time here has been centered around a lot of things, but the building, I would assume, would be one of the central focuses for you.
Yeah, I think the main task when I came, in some people's minds, was to raise the funds in order to break ground on the building. It was a long time coming. We've done a lot of building on this campus, and a new home for business studies was sorely needed.
Right. Now, I've had the chance to go walk through your current building, Koffler Hall, and for the people who haven't had that opportunity, who may be listening to this podcast, can you say briefly why a new building is necessary for you guys?
Well, we can fit about 2/3 of our faculty in that building at most, and we have one classroom. So we don't have an area where we can easily run into or come together with those who are interested in business studies and business affairs. So it's really going to transform the way that we interact. We've had incredibly high faculty morale and great student engagement, given that we don't have our own building. And this isn't meant to be a silo. The building's not meant to be a silo for the business school. It's meant to be a place that everybody actually on that part of the campus will enjoy coming. We have the philosophy and theology departments very nearby, and we also have art nearby, and we have computer science and math not too far away as well. So, business is a very interdisciplinary field of study, and we hope that the building reflects the spectrum of diversity that we have on our campus.
Right. Now, what are some of the aspects of the building that you're most excited about?
Well, the atrium is incredible. I think this might turn out to be an award-winning building for the way that it takes an existing structure, Dorr Hall, which was for many years a girls' dormitory, and marries it with the 2-story atrium. You have kind of a town square effect because the brick front of Dorr Hall is one wall of the atrium, and then links it to a 21st century, very, very contemporary classroom structure. So Dorr Hall is where mostly the faculty are, and there's a few meeting and classroom spaces and food service space, and then you have the atrium, and then you have the classroom space.
Right. So for students who are going to be looking to come to PC, either on their tours that are upcoming, or the freshmen who will be coming into the building second semester when it comes online, what will their experience be like in terms of the classrooms and the other areas that they can use?
Well, the atrium is a gorgeous food service supported meeting area. It'll have a lot of soft seating in it. It's also designed so that we can swoop away all that soft seating and put 300 chairs in there. And so when we have, say, freshman orientation for business students, we'll do it in the atrium. We have a huge screen that comes down from the ceiling onto which you can project images as part of that kind of an event, say a freshman orientation event. There are 11 instructional spaces in the building. They're designed for what we call active learning. The best way to describe active learning is that the role of the class is on the students, not on the faculty member. So it's not sage on the stage teaching, it's more teaching as coaching. So we hope that it will usher in a lot more interest in active learning, not just at the business school, but across campus. And there already is a lot of interest, as a matter of fact, in that mode of teaching, that style of pedagogy.
Now that's interesting in terms of how the students interact not only with each other but with the professors during class time and outside of class time. Now, have you seen a shift in higher ed in terms of how that's done, or is a shift kind of ongoing as opposed to a more traditional model?
Oh yeah, there's a shift ongoing away from what we call a faculty-centered mode of interaction in a face-to-face classroom. It's necessary because with technology, if you want to watch a lecture, you can set your alarm for 4 a.m. and get up and watch a lecture, or come back from the bar on Saturday night and watch a lecture. So you don't need to be on campus embracing a 4-year residential experience in order to watch a lecture.
Right. So instead of that, how are professors able to really take hold of this active learning model and really make it their own and make it so students are getting the most out of their investment here in PC in terms of their time? Well,
I mean, the question of getting the most out of your investment is a much larger question. I think what you get out of a business education at Providence College is a curriculum that's deeply grounded in the liberal arts, and you interaction with all kinds of adults on campus, and a great peer community, and lots of co-curricular activities that range from cheering for friar teams to internships and clubs and all that kind of thing. So that's the big picture. In terms of what happens in the classroom, again, it's about students taking responsibility for their learning in a way, which in a coaching model, that's what happens. You have to want to practice. You have to want feedback from your coach in order to get better. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, there's this term, flip the classroom. I'm not a huge fan anymore of that because it's kind of facile, but the notion is to share responsibility for the learning experience rather than sort of the traditional model, which is faculty member gets up and all the attention in the face-to-face session is on the faculty member, and then the student goes home and does some homework that might actually have come from a publishing company that has a textbook, and then the faculty member grades the homework and gets up and lectures again. That's not the learning style of millennials. It's not the learning style of the generation behind millennials. And so actually what we know from the science of teaching and learning is for centuries what's called active learning. When you actually do something, when you apply a skill or knowledge, you retain so much more of that. You retain a minuscule percent of what is presented in a lecture format. So it's all about iteration. It's all about using a lecture or other multimedia sources to be exposed to some concepts, and then coming into the classroom and working with your peers or working alone, sharing some of your learnings, applying. These classrooms don't have a front. The hallmark of an active learning classroom is there's no front to the classroom because the faculty member is going to be walking around. Students are going to be working in teams or in dyads or alone. They're going to be doing a lot of different things over the course of 50 or 90 or minutes or however long the class session is.
Right. So they'll use some of their homework time or time away from the classroom to prepare for those experiences.
Right. So the term "flip the classroom," one way to interpret that is that you do your homework in class. So the flip is you're going to watch the lecture before you come to class, and you do your homework in class.
Right. No, that makes sense, and especially you see other schools. The prime example is MIT. You have basically their entire, not curriculum, but everything that you can access as a student at MIT is available for anybody to access. However, going to MIT is obviously still extremely valuable because of all the experiences you get while you're there in terms of the interactions and working with faculty and professors and things like that.
Absolutely.
So, hey, that's completely understandable. And we touched on this a little bit in terms of outside the classroom and inside the classroom. I know one thing that's new for PCSB this year is the Benjamin Family Social Media Fellowship. And I think you guys went through the kind of the orientation process 2 weeks ago. So in terms of people who may not know about that program, kind of if you could lay out some of the history of it and why it's important to what you're doing.
Absolutely. That goes, I think, back to your question about return on investment. The return on the investment in a PC education is about so much more than what happens in a traditional classroom setting. And so experiential learning, I think, is very important. It's been a strategic priority for us at the business school. And the Benjamin Family Fellowships are fellowships in social media marketing. And this was the brainchild of one of our relatively new faculty, Dr. Sarah Ludi. And she's walked into my office not very long ago with a very long PowerPoint slide deck, beautifully done. And this idea for this social media fellowship program had pretty much sprung full grown from her mind. And in very short order, partly thanks to your help, we were able to find a donor who was willing to support it. And so we have 5 students. They're not just business students. We explicitly wanted students with an artistic bent and with an English writing knack. And we sent out applications, and we got overwhelmed with interest. And so we're just done with 2 weeks of training of the 5 Benjamin Family Social Media Marketing Fellows. And they have been trained for 2 weeks every morning for 2 weeks before the start of class. So it was a big commitment on their part to come back to campus early and engage in this training. We had lots of different faculty come in as guests. And they will be conducting a lot of the Providence College School of Business's social media work under the guidance of faculty and staff over the coming year. And at the end of the year, in April, the 5 of them will go down to New York City, and they'll meet with, we have alums in very senior roles in a lot of social media type companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And so the fellows will get to go down to New York and interact with alums and get to know those companies a little bit over the course of a couple of days. So it's a wonderful co-curricular opportunity. It's exactly what we were talking about. It's learn something and then learn by doing, or be exposed to something and then learn by doing. So really, really excited about that.
Right, and then you have the part for them where they're not going to be getting credits for this. This is simply outside of the normal academic structure, but in some ways it's just as valuable in terms of what they're looking to do post-college.
Right. They're going to get a tiny stipend at the end of the year. They'll be able to call this an internship. But most importantly, they're getting remarkable experience actually practicing the art of social media marketing. Yep.
And then another piece to the puzzle for you guys that was very successful this past year is that the different competitions you've had students enter, around the country, and they've done very well. Does that kind of fit the same model as the Benjamin Family Fellowships?
Yeah, I think you're ready to be dean of the School of Business, Matt. You kind of got the theme here. Experiential learning, as I said, was one of our strategic goals, and the case competitions that we've been able to have our students participate in are an example of experiential learning, co-curricular activity, builds on skills and knowledge acquired through classroom study, but again allows for application. Anytime there's a competition, it heightens attention and makes people excited. So another great philanthropic opportunity was a donation to endow a program in business ethics, and so through that donation, we were able to send students to 2 national case competitions in business ethics last year, one in the fall and one in the spring. We sent 2 folks in the fall. They kind of learned the ropes. They didn't do all that well, but they came home with lots of ideas. And the second opportunity that we were offered involved 4 students. So the 2 who had gone in the fall were joined by 2 more, and they actually won that case competition. And that was very, very, very thrilling for us all. The case was actually about a global company and Zika virus. And one of the young men, I took them all out to dinner to thank them. And I said, I'll take you out to dinner anywhere in Providence. They wanted to go to a steakhouse, which was great. So we had this lovely, lovely steak dinner, and I was quizzing them over dinner. Why do you think you did so well? And one of the young men had done his 4th semester DWC, or Development of Western Civ Colloquium, on global public health. And so he was able to bring that semester-long experience learning about global public health to this case competition, which was about how this global company was going to deal with the Zika virus. And so it really is, it's an example of how the combination of a business education and the liberal arts really serves our students well. The year before that, our team in the CFA Global Research Challenge made it to the hemispheric semifinals. So they started out at the base of a pyramid of about 800 and wound up in the top 25. And the feedback we got about their participation was also about the liberal arts. It was about how they explained concepts, how articulate they were. It was really a testimony not to their quant skills necessarily, but to the fact that they'd had a business education deeply and uniquely rooted in the liberal arts.
Right. And I've seen you, talk about this topic. Publicly, I've seen things you've written, even on Twitter, you posted about kind of putting liberal arts as a major part of business education. Was that always part of your thinking, or is that something that you've kind of evolved into, or how has that worked for you in kind of embracing that model?
I've never been happy to just sit in a silo or in a spot in a bureaucracy or a corporation. I've always been somebody that wanted to span roles and span functions and span nations, and I grew up very internationally. I think it was only recently that I've come to realize how some of these experiences that came out of my upbringing have shaped who I am. But I've never been happy, just being in one place or one function or one spot. So the combination of business and the liberal arts actually has been ingrained in me for a very, very, very long time. When I was in graduate school, if you asked my colleagues from graduate school, they probably would tell you they didn't think I'd ever go into academia because they thought I'd probably wind up in business. And I went into academia, and I got a little tired of some aspects of the academic life, and that's when I went to Wall Street. So I've always been a person to jump around. Haven't followed a linear career.
Right. So, but your time here obviously has gone very well. The school has done very well, and I've heard you reference the Bloomberg rankings where PC has gone up every year. With that said, I'm assuming, knowing you well, that you always want to improve. You don't want to stay stagnant. So, what are some of the things that you're hoping to do in the near future, long term, and what are some of the things that can help you accelerate that?
We're so incredibly grateful to the donors. We had overwhelming support for the building, and it's great to build buildings, and we really, really needed a building, but we're now turning our attention to building program and building programs that will allow our faculty to excel and to reach their greatest potential, allow our students to flourish and make the most of their time here. So we're coming to the end of a strategic plan. We've done very, very well with that strategic plan. I would say we've hit our marks almost all areas in that strategic plan, with the possible exception of faculty resources. We're certainly looking forward to being able to continue to support and grow our faculty as needed. We serve 40% of the students, of the undergraduates and the graduate students on this campus, and we don't have anywhere near 40% of the faculty bodies or 40% of the faculty budget. So I'm looking forward to continuing to raise funds for innovative new programs that, again, allow our faculty to excel and allow our students to flourish.
Oh, that sounds great. So in terms of the student flourishing, are there certain examples that kind of stick out for you when you think about some of the students who have done very well, or people you're proud of that you're excited to share with others?
Well, I'll say that we are in a somewhat accelerated for higher ed process of reviewing our undergraduate program curriculum, and so I think we're looking toward in the relatively near future, some modest changes to our undergraduate curriculum. And we are excited to support our students. You mentioned student flourishing. We think there are some areas like data analytics and quantitative rigor where we can push our students a little bit harder. So we're going to be starting to think about that. We have students that come in naturally very gifted and drawn towards the more quantitative side of business, and there are lots of examples of those students who've done well. Carlos Ayala was an intern at Goldman Sachs this past summer between his sophomore and junior year, and he just sent me an email last week and said he'd been offered the opportunity to come back and serve as an intern again between junior and senior year, and that's terrific. And we have a good number of PC alums at Goldman, but we certainly don't send a young person there every year, and we certainly don't have the kind of track record that some of our competitors do. So, so Carlos is one of those people who I think came in, naturally drawn both to the arts and sciences and to the quantitative side of business. Not all our students are, and so that's one of the reasons we're looking at what we can do in our curriculum. We've been told by employers, we're a top 25 ranked employer, we've been told by employers that if we can turn out students who are, who continue to be absolutely excellent with their interpersonal skills, with their written and oral communication, with their big picture understanding of the world, with the ethical foundation that they have, if we continue to turn out students with all that, and students who, are above average on the sort of critical thinking, quantitative reasoning side, that, the sky's the limit for our students. You're probably looking for specific stories beyond Carlos. There's been a lot of publicity around Francisco Oler, who graduated last May, and boy, did he make, he made absolutely the most of his 4 years on this campus. He came here from Puerto Rico, wheelchair bound, hadn't experienced what life is like in the snow, managed to get himself around this campus every day of every week, and he is an inspiration to me every day. And I think his mother said to me, he was kind of shy when he came to PC and a little
I know
withdrawn.
him. It's hard to imagine him being shy now that I know him.
So he's an example of somebody who made the most, not just of the academic opportunities here, but of the 4-year residential experience of the community.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about some of these high-achieving PC people, are there any characteristics that you would say kind of flow through all of them, that you would say, all right, if these people have kind of X, Y, Z, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to be successful or do really good things or kind of make the most of their time at the college?
I mean, what we really want for the students who come to Providence College is for them to go through a process of discernment here and discover what is going to make a good life for them. And so I hesitate to say, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll get an offer at Goldman like Carlos, because that's not the right path for everybody. Mm-hmm. I often talk about wanting fewer students majoring in business, and that raises some eyebrows. But I think we have students who major in business because they're worried about the debt they're going to carry with them after they get out, and they want a high-paying job because they want to be able to pay down that debt and begin to raise a family. And one of my goals is to give people the comfort to major in something about which they're passionate and believe in themselves enough to take what might seem like a risk and not major in management, but major in psychology, maybe.
Right. And is that, that's great advice. And I know you have a chance to speak with a lot of students, especially freshmen and some families as well. Is there other advice you give to people who are just entering their freshman year? I know we had move-in last Thursday here on campus.
Well, the advice I give to parents is not to ride the roller coaster, especially freshman year, because there are good days and bad days, and you just kind of have to be the steady, calm voice behind your students. Make the most of the opportunities. We have involvement fairs of all kinds. We have a School of Business-based involvement fair. We have campus-wide involvement fairs. Get involved in a few things. Get involved in too many things freshman year, because then you can come back sophomore year and say, all right, I like this better than that. But get involved, make friends, do something that is completely outside your comfort zone.
Right.
Try it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Is there anything else you would like to say to the people who are listening?
No, I often say that I've had a lot of jobs, and working at Providence College and being able to be part of the Providence College community, the Friar family, it sounds trite, but it really is a family, and I've never worked with a better group of people.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia.
Take care.